What's up, everybody? Jordan Stewart here from Vover. Thanks so much for tapping into the Vover original show. Just a reminder that if you want to drop your opinions about the episode or respond to the host and guests with your voice, go and download the Vover app wherever you get your apps. Vover, voice over everything. Enjoyed the show.
It's time to level up with Dr. Mondo. Vover. What is good, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Level Up with Dr. Mondo. I'm your host, Dr. Armando Gonzalez, licensed therapist, founder and CEO of Cheat Code, the Cheat Code Foundation. And today we have a member actually of the Cheat Code family, but people might not even know about that part. We'll let him explain more about his involvement with Cheat Code. But you know him better as Mr. Forbes 30 under 30 list. That's a big deal. He'll tell you more about that. He's also a professional soccer player in the USL for Austin Bold. He's Sacramento proud and also Nigerian proud. I'll let him explain all of that and then some on this episode today. So Amobi Okugo. Amobi, welcome to Level Up. I'm so glad to have you, man.
Pleasure is all mine, Dr. Mondo. Thanks for having me. I'm just happy I can get on. You know, you're getting some big hitters on this platform. So
I was gonna say the big hitters continue because you're now on the podcast. So we continue with Murderers Row, man. Tell people more. You're a soccer player. I think that's pretty self-explanatory to people. But you have so much more to you that you're involved with. Maybe tell people more about the other sides of you that you're exploring as well in the business and the other elements of you.
Yeah. So, I mean, quick rundown. First generation Nigerian American, born and raised in California, Sacramento. Born in Haywood, but raised in Sacramento. Grew up playing soccer and basketball until soccer took over. And I was fortunate at a very young age, to play at a high level from a soccer standpoint, youth national teams, residency, went to UCLA, and then ultimately went pro at 18. But outside of that, fortunately, I've been able to do a lot of other things. So like I'm a media host, I got a couple podcasts outside of what I do. Entrepreneur, founder of Frugal Athlete and some other stuff, consultant, advisor. I like to keep my hands in a lot of things, as as we developed a relationship over the year. I like to stay busy, so it's been fun. It's been, it's been grueling at times, but I think a lot of people that know me know that, I got my hands in a lot of pots, for a good reason.
Yeah. All purpose driven and driven is definitely the word that comes to mind when I think of you. We'll dive into your story here on the podcast in a minute. I will say though, in getting to know you, one of the things I have found, I've certainly found that to be true, that you have your hands in multiple pots at one time, and somehow you manage to do it all. To me, there's no better story from me getting to know you than the story that got relayed, I think, to me. Amobi's involved, and he can tell you more about his involvement with Cheat Code. But someone on my team told me, man, that someone on your soccer team, one of the staff or something like that, was like, yo, are you an IT guy or what? Because you're always in front of your laptop. Tell me that story real quick, because I don't want to butcher it.
No, respect. So this year, we had a couple of new guys on the team, and it's preseason, so everyone's getting to know each other. You do team intros and team meetings and stuff like that. And I had my vlogging camera around, and then one of the guys was he was too nervous to ask me until everyone started to get to know each other, and he was like, "Yo, Amobi, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I thought you were the digital manager guy." And I was like, he was like, "Why are we letting the digital manager guy practice with us?" And he's actually that. He's a baller. What's going on? And then he actually knew me and met me, and then looked at my Instagram and was like, oh, this guy's doing a lot. So
that works so hard that people are confused about what lane you're even in. That Amobi's, he's got his laptop up. He's always working on something. It's a perfect segue into this podcast where we talk to super successful people who have so many accolades. But often what we don't do is we don't take time to really tell some of the stories about I'm sure there's been struggles in your life. And, of course, on this podcast, we talk about mental health struggles. It could be anxiety, depression, relationship struggles. just anything that typically would never be the headline that we would lead with to the world, right? And now we're trying to change that stigma by telling these stories. So I'm just curious for you, man, in your journey to leveling up, what was some mental health struggle that you went through that you had to endure on the journey to becoming who you are?
No, that's a great question. And I appreciate you, with everything that you've done with Cheat Code. Because before I was like mental health, like suck it up. Like everyone has to go through stuff. So for me, I think the big pivotal point to like level up was the year of free agency that I went through.
Mhm.
All my life growing up, first name on the roster, always making the squad, captain, starter. But then there was a year when I had to be a free agent, partly just negotiation, agents, contracts, teams, and like going through a whole year of not having a club, not only just from a compensation standpoint, but just like an identity standpoint, being like the go-to guy for a lot of things, whether it's family and friends, and like just like having to explain, yo, where you playing at? Like, wait, you still in SAC? Isn't season going on? It's like, no, I'm on free agent FC. Like, you heard of that team? Like the team with no team. So that was like, and it's something that takes a toll on you without you even realizing it, because you're in this mode of like, all right, I'm working to get back on a team, but also you got to sit back and realize like, all right, not everything has to rely on soccer. So it was like the best and worst thing that happened for me, being a free agent for that 1 year. I was 2018. And the thing about it was like, I just came off like 2 playoff performances where I like balled out, like, did really well. I was expecting to, whether I was going to get my option picked up or re-sign or get picked up by another team, I was like pretty confident. And then, things happen, or let me say things didn't happen. And, you don't have a team for the start of the season. All right, cool. Get something like for preseason. Preseason goes week 1, week 2. All right, you don't have a team. It's like, all right, what's going on? You're calling your agent every day. He doesn't have any information. Your family's like, where are you going to be at? It's just a whole battle that a lot of athletes can speak to. But you never really know about it until you go through it. And I think that was like, it took a toll. I wouldn't say it like affected me like crazy, but like I said before, like you don't even notice it until like after the fact. And you're like, wow,
Yeah, when you have perspective looking back at it, it really shows how it wasn't easy and how difficult it was. I think that's something too that's interesting. I don't know, as we're talking about it, I don't know how many other careers outside of sports, force people into early crises of identity like sports does. Because in so many careers, you retire, whether it's at retirement age or in your 50s, 60s, 70s, sometimes never, but it's later in life. And so there's a different perspective that you have to view that transition through, and there's more elements of just who you are as a person that you've been developed by that point. For someone under 30 years old to have to go through a crisis of identity, I mean, take us through a little bit of that. Like, share what were, I know you said it wasn't crazy hard, but like, what were some of the, maybe like the darkest thoughts or the hardest moments of contemplation or self-doubt that you had when you were going through that free agency?
I think the toughest part was the sense of like, I don't want to say like not being able to like control your destiny in terms of like, it never ends how you want it in sports, whether it's an injury or, father time catching up to you. But from the standpoint of like not having a team, that was just like a game changer for me. Going through that period as a free agent, I know initially I was like, everyone goes through it, but the darkest moment was for me was like having to explain it to other people, and like, cause like they don't really get it, but they trying to get it and they're trying to help you, and like they can't really help you. So it's like everything's like a mute point. And then from the standpoint of like not having control of your career, from the standpoint of like, obviously, father time happens. Everyone gets old and new blood comes into the sport. Injuries or whatever. But from the standpoint of like, all right, no team wants you, and you're like kind of, I want to say, in the prime of your career or the best shape of your career, that was kind of like, is my talent like, am I getting worse, or like what's the situation? So trying to figure out that standpoint. And then it's like, from the time you were like 12 years old, everyone's like, you're the soccer player, you're going to go pro. Like, even before I even had the opportunity to go pro, they're telling my parents, like, make sure your son is set up. He's going to go pro in soccer or whatever. And then now you're not. And people are like, Amobi, like, what's Amobi doing? Why are you still in SAC? Like, I thought you, are you in Philly? Like, where are you even playing? And so it's like having to explain that. It's just like, it takes its toll. And then once again, like my family, because they're trying to like be there for me. So it's almost like overwhelming to like, I know you're trying to help, but like, yo, I'm good, but you're not good. And like, I had a girlfriend at the time, and she's asking questions, trying to be there for me. So it's like that battle is like, you don't really, and it's crazy because I never really talk about it like that, because it's like a career, but like talking about it now, it's like, yeah, that's crazy. Like there'd be sometimes when like you snap and you don't mean to. It's just like, because people are like trying to help and you're not trying to receive it, and it like kind of backfires. Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of it.
You talk about the identity crisis. It's hard when it's been something that I imagine like your whole life was spoken over you. And so we internalize the stories that people speak over us. And so when we're told from a young age that this is our path and it's just as simple as that, we take comfort in that. And then when something in that journey, there's a hiccup or there's a bump in the road, it becomes really challenging, because it's almost like so much of our security becomes wrapped up in seeing that come to fruition and play out, that we can really question ourselves. Do you think, I know that you're passionate about teaching things to athletes that maybe they might not otherwise know, like financial literacy and things like that. Do you think it's important for athletes, even at a young age, if they know that they're going to most likely go pro in something, to still have maybe not a backup plan, but just additional elements of self that they're developing from a young age?
Most definitely. I think it's vital. And fortunately for me, I think that's kind of what helped me in those processes. Like whenever I was injured, or whenever that period of free agency, the fact that I had other things to keep my mind off solely just sport, it helps with your identity. It helps, give you an opportunity to see yourself in another light. A quote that was told to me is like, the most dangerous thing in the world is an athlete that knows they can compete in another arena. Like, you have all the qualities to perform and excel in whatever you want to do. And you can use the concepts that you learned from sport. It's just that as athletes, we're ingrained to, go all in our sport, that we don't realize that we're good in other things. So for me, I would highly recommend, pursuing other passions, being curious, navigating different circles, to hopefully give yourself an opportunity whenever that time comes, or even when you're not playing. Like, I feel like how you are off the field will definitely improve your performance and help your performance. So even like something that I do, just like, it wasn't as practice, as just like, because I don't like to talk about soccer too much or like all the time. So like when I meet new people, I tell them I work in like sports marketing, or like, sometimes you might say I'm like lying, but it just helps me like kind of identify with things that I like to do off the field and different things like that.
And it's not lying, because you actually do have your hands in sports marketing. Right? You got your hands in so many things. It's just a matter of kind of what you lead with. And I think it is. It's good advice. I will, because I've shared different stories of athletes I've worked with, and shout out to Lindsey Vonn for giving me shout outs recently, just on some interviews she's been doing and stuff. And so I feel like I can share this story with all of it, everyone, because it relates to what you're sharing. But here's arguably the greatest, winter sports Olympian, greatest skier of all time, saying things similar to what you're saying of, I'm not sure I have, a whole lot to offer outside of skiing. And I'm paraphrasing her words, of course. And it blows me away, because I think a lot of times we on the outside look at you, Amobi, and look at Lindsey and other athletes, and we say, my gosh, like, we see the attributes. We don't see just you being good at sport. But I think what's interesting I found is that athletes, sometimes they tell the story to themselves, almost like, well, I'm just good at this one thing, and it's kicking a ball or it's skiing down a mountain. When in reality, a lot of times from the outside, people are able to look in and be like, look at the work ethic, look at the diligence, look at the creativity, look at the, all those things. And I think that it's important too for athletes to have that perspective that you are, even if you're only pouring into one sport, you are applying a lot of gifts, strengths, and attributes that you can and will use when you're not only applying it to sport. You're going to be up to a lot of amazing things. Where can people keep up with you on Instagram? What's your handle on IG?
Yeah, at Amobi Says, AMOBI SAYS. Catch me there, and you'll see a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, whether it's with Cheat Code, Frugal Athlete, and all the other projects that I got going on, and always down to connect with people. That's what it's all about. So, appreciate you giving me this platform.
Appreciate you joining us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode. Make sure that you keep up with what Amobi says, because there's always some good wisdom and nuggets in there. And until our next episode, make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast through Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to this on your major platforms. And until next time,
it's time to level up with Dr. Mondo.
Vover.